Okay, you guys, I'm trying to keep my calm. I'm just, I'm very upset about this whole thing. You can buy a Glock from China. Did you guys see my last video? It says Glock on it. It comes from China. They just ship it to your door. It's fully functional. You stick the magazine. Look at, I have a 3D printed round right here. You stick the magazine into the pistol. You squeeze the trigger. It loads the round into the chamber, and then when you squeeze the trigger again, it ejects, and it just nonstop ejects the shells. But I got some pushback in the last video saying it's not a fully functional Glock because it's not shooting any rounds out of the barrel. And hey, I guess that's right. Okay, so it's not quite as scary as I thought because it's not shooting bullets. But look, it doesn't stop you guys. China is lying to you. Science and education model. What are they talking about? This is another gun. That's a pistol. And this one will shoot rounds right out of that barrel. And look, it's a Glock too. They're selling Glocks from China to children that will shoot bullets out of the barrel. What is the world coming to? At first glance, these two appear to be the same. They are the same size. This one says it's a Glock 21. This one says it's a Glock 17. And that seems like about the size of an actual Glock 17. But this one feels wider in the hand than this one. And there are subtle clues that you can see that they aren't the same mold. They're very similar, but not quite the same. Now, the slides are quite different. You can see this one just has printed Glock 21 on it, whereas this one has a recessed lettering, which is kind of cool. Let's do something about that. I've got a crayon here. How many of you say crown when you're talking about crayon? C-R-A-Y-O-N. I know that some people say crown. It bugs me. But anyway, hey, if you just take your crayon, you can carve, so you draw really hard on the recessed portion of, this is like a trip from actual Glocks as well. You can take the embossed lettering and fill it with crayon wax, basically. You just go back and forth until it fills up the cracks. And then after you're done, you just sort of scrape off the crayon around the lettering. Look, this says it's chambered in 9x19 parabellum. Oh my God. To kids. They're selling these to kids. It'll all clean up quite nicely. Big difference between these two is the magazines. You can see this one here is sort of single stacked, and it doesn't look anything like an actual Glock magazine, which is why this handle is more narrow, which I suppose might be better for a kid's hands. And this one here has like what looks like a real double stack Glock magazine. Like that's much more true to form. And it says that it takes 12 rounds here, whereas this one only takes 9. In the box, we're getting a bunch of these smooth-tipped, hollow, bullet-looking things. It's the same shells to be ejected as we have on this model here. Like I said in the beginning, I've got this 3D printed version that we made, and I don't know, yeah, these are not going to be compatible. They're different sizes. Even though the magazine will hold 12 of them, let's just load like 5 of them in there and see what happens. I think these are just going to eject in the same way as the red one ejects its shells, and this is not the fully, loaded projectile coming out the front. So it always takes the first cycling of the slide to load the bullet into the chamber so that it can eject. Yep. And then that's pretty cool. There's last round hold open so you can drop that slide. So that is function number 1. And here in this bag, we have the modified rounds. I guess we would call these the actual shells for the bullets that get shot. There's a little spring inside of each one of these shells, and you take one of these little orange projectiles, stick it in there until it clicks, load a few of them into the magazine, try to get them seated into the chamber, which doesn't seem to be working. Maybe if I load it by hand, yeah, that goes in there. Slide that forward. Let's see what, oh, it just fired. So yeah, as this fully seats, as it slams home, and then this will eject, right? Yep. So let's just give it a try here. Stick that in there, see if we can get 2 to fire. Yep, they fire for sure. But call me crazy, I don't think that's a 9mm round. So this is not actually 9x19 Parabellum as it claims to be. Okay, so that's function number 2. If you watched the last video about the red Glock, then you'll know that this laser functionality was what I was asking for. And there's a reason that having a laser from these pistols is just such a phenomenal thing as a training aid for getting the muscle memory when you want to fire your actual weapon. So here's how that goes, right? You've got your concealed carry drill, you pull it, and your elbows are down, and you squeeze the trigger. What's gonna happen is that first finger, as it squeezes, it's gonna, I'm exaggerating here obviously, but it's gonna pull the pistol up and away like that, which is gonna give you a flick of the laser on the wall where you're shooting. Whereas when you do it correctly, with your elbows up, so you get that grip, and then your elbows come up, you're locking that grip much more securely onto the pistol, and that laser stays in position. So you'll just see a nice point on the wall the whole time. That's the theory, and that's how it works when you have the little laser modules in your actual firearm, because those things are very stable, and the firearm has a very clean pull to the trigger, and also the firing pin hitting the laser. So it's all very clean. With this pistol, however, there are 3 major problems. First of which is the fact that you cannot adjust windage and elevation. So there's no screws to get this laser module to sit straight. So where I'm aiming and where the laser is going, let's see if I can show you guys this on camera. Yeah, you see where the laser comes out to? So it's nowhere near being in the spot where it needs to be. The second problem is no matter how steady you hold the pistol, it does not create a dot. So look, I can get a dot to go. See there's a nice clean dot. You guys can see it. But something about the motion of the trigger and all that causes, and it's a consistent pattern. I'm seeing like a little V right here and then a little dash. And I've braced this thing up against the table so there is 0 movement happening from my hands. So that's all internal to all this. There's like a wiggle that's happening. So basically you just don't get a great laser picture when you squeeze the trigger. And the third major flaw with this toy is the trigger pull. It's atrocious. So it's got the little safety like you would expect from an actual Glock. You see that little safety nub. But unless I'm pulling, the safety nub does nothing. It's just there for sort of like an accurate feel. And unless I'm pulling from the top of the trigger, that's actually a pretty good feel. But if I pull from the bottom, which is where you should be training to pull from, it's binding up inside there, and it's just crunchy, especially here at the end where that little metal pin is getting to the like the edge of the frame, and it's kind of catching, and it's getting better as time goes on. Like the more I play with it, the more it's sort of breaking in, I would say, but it's still not great, you guys. And the other one functions better. Although I gotta say, it is better than when I first started making this video. So however many rounds I've squeezed off in the course of making this video has sort of loosened it up. Yeah, I just wish that I could adjust that laser so that where I'm aiming with my iron sights, that's where the laser would point. So the final thing to talk about is this little module, which is a laser receiver, and it beeps when you shoot it. It takes AAA batteries, and it's got a little speaker that you can see. You can see the speaker grill here on the back anyway. Speaker's inside there. And then you can see if I shoot it with a laser. So let's get the laser where it's constantly on. There we go. And then we'll just hit it. Here's the problem, and hopefully you guys can see this on camera. It doesn't always register. See, that's a dead spot. So each one of those little things is a receiver for the laser, and this is meant to be a diffuser, and that makes it so, even if you don't quite hit one of the sensors directly on the sensor, it will still register. So if I put this across the room and shoot it, we start to get that count going up with the little thing. It's a fun game, you guys, but you know what makes it not so much fun? The fact that the laser is not at all accurate to the iron sights. So my final verdict is get this one. The simple one that's less expensive and just sort of ejects shells. The trigger on it is, for a professional person who actually fires, pistols for a living, they would say this trigger is nothing like an actual firearm, but it is kind of sort of. There's sort of a take up right there. Then there's this spring pull you're getting. So I call that take up, but it's sort of like effortful take up that's about as much pull as you'd normally have for the break on a pistol, and then you can feel that wall, you can feel that edge, and then you go a little bit further and the slide reciprocates. So there is kind of sort of an element of realism to that trigger pull. And on the new one here, the blue one, it's less accurate to that. It seems like there's more going on in there. There's more friction. Maybe if I continue to break this in, it will be closer to that one, but I don't know. It's not worth the money, you guys. The added functionality, being able to fire those little rounds, those little tiny little microscopic things. No, the laser functionality, that's what made this thing and set it apart, and that's kind of a no-go just because of the inaccuracy of it. This is the laser barrel that comes in the kit, and if it was done correctly, there would be 2 little screws on, either side to do windage and elevation to get that thing dialed in to the iron sights. That's a total oversight as far as the design of this toy goes. Like what are they thinking? Even kids are going to be upset that it doesn't shoot straight. Cheap crap from China without a Western design team standing behind their product. What do we come to expect? This kind of stuff. Yeah, see, taking it apart, the little laser module up here, there's nothing you can do to control where that's aimed. And I would love to 3D print a new housing that gave me the ability to aim that, but I just don't have the room to work with. Like, that's such a thin wall. It kind of needs a redesign from the ground up. I figured out how to adjust where the laser is aimed, and it's not pretty, but it does the job. Basically, I hit it with a lighter, got the barrel all nice and hot, and then I just bent it, and you can see it sure does look ugly. Look at how they massacred my boy. But it aims just right. It shoots exactly where the iron sights line up. So this is now quite functional, and squeezing it a few hundred more times, it is breaking in. So that does have a nice trigger pull now. So this is pretty viable at this point. Taping that to the wall, so hopefully you guys can see. Let's line this up. Pretty good, pretty close. Good enough, right? For like 14 bucks? So let's do a training drill here. Shirt up, aimed, and good enough. Boom. Yeah, hey, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And it's surprisingly fun, even for a 40-something. I think my kiddo's gonna love this. But it gets a little bit better still because the magazine says it only holds 12 rounds right there, but it actually holds 14 rounds. So what you can do is squeeze the trigger so that it's ready to be, you can rack the slide by hand. You put the slide or the magazine into the handle, then you rack the slide, which will load a single, you can see it happening right there. It loads a single cartridge, I don't know what to call it there, into the chamber. So it's ready to eject shells. So that's like having one, you just like rack the slide, so it's kind of like practice for that. Let off the trigger, and now every time I squeeze the trigger, the laser's going to fire, and a round is going to be ejected. A round, a piece of plastic is going to be ejected. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, it jammed up. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and it holds back on the last round. So if there was an extra magazine, you could end magazines, you could go for your quick draw, and you could stick a new magazine in, drop the chamber, and start firing again. Would be really cool, but unfortunately, it only came with a single magazine. That is some awesome functionality. If maybe I could 3D print another magazine or something like that. I don't know. We'll see how many views this video gets to see if that's worth my while. All right, thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. This is a great little training aid once you do all the adjustments, although I gotta say, that's not for the faint of heart, the bending that barrel with a lighter. If you're not the sort who's, I don't know, a tinkerer who has experience with this sort of a thing, I could see that you could easily light your barrel on fire or do some other catastrophically bend it in the wrong way and then it's just broken. So that's, it's a dangerous activity, I should say. But anyway, yeah, cool, fun toy. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.
I'm the YouTube algorithm. You should subscribe to Design Prototype Test, ring the all bell and become a fiscal supporter by clicking on the links. As your benevolent overlord, I'm telling you that it will make your life better. Rather than allowing me to keep force-feeding you mass audience, vacuous content, you'll actually be shown the interesting stuff that most people miss.